So today we are going to talk about constipation. Okay, જેને આપણે ગુજરાતીમાં કબજિયાત કહીએ છીએ. Okay, so today's lecture will be on this constipation. Okay, constipation is one of the most common complaints that hamper individuals' day-to-day activities. Okay, and one of the most common presenting features that brings the patient to a general physician or a general practitioner. Okay, so today we'll be talking about what is constipation, then what could be the internal causes or what could be the causes that lead to constipation, and finally the drugs that are used to treat constipation. Also, we would discuss at the end that what are the clinical conditions where we use drugs that are used to treat constipation. So, first of all, what is constipation? So, there is no such single definition of constipation, but we can say that an individual is suffering from constipation when he is passing very hard stools, or the frequency of passing stool is less than 3 per week, that is one time every 3 days. Excessive straining is associated with the passage of stool. Passage of stool is associated with a sense of incomplete evacuation. And finally, the excessive time and unsuccessful time is spent in the toilet. Repeated time or repeated attempts are made to pass the stool. So all these things, either together or singly, they amount to what is known as constipation. Okay, individual, we can say that an individual having either one or a combination of these complaints is said to be suffering from constipation. Please remember that it is a highly subjective thing. Okay, so what could be the etiology? What are the reasons by which an individual can suffer from constipation? In most of the cases there is no cause. Okay, so it is usually it is idiopathic, and it is related to the lifestyle of an individual. Okay, sedentary lifestyle, that is no activity, not taking plenty of fluids, not taking fiber rich diet, okay, not taking healthy meal, not adequate sleep and rest, and consuming high calorie dense calories foods like soft drinks, like this pizza burger and fast food or such diet can lead to constipation. Okay, so immobility, improper diet, both can lead to constipation. Secondary causes, there are many. It could be secondary to some endocrine and metabolic disorder. Say for example, hypothyroidism. An individual who is suffering from hypothyroidism is likely to be suffering from constipation as well. And if we correct the thyroid abnormality, if we maintain the thyroxine level in the normal range, then the constipation of an individual is likely to get corrected. Some neurological disorders, psychological disorders, say for example depression, is also associated with constipation. Or that could be structural abnormalities, piles, fissures. Okay, the anatomical problems or pathology in relation to the rectum and anal canal region can also give rise to constipation. So these are the various causes which can lead to constipation. Some drugs, they are also associated with constipation. So when individual is taking medications for some other condition, but that particular drug may lead to constipation as an adverse effect. Say for example, calcium channel blockers. Calcium channel blockers like nifedipine, amlodipine, they are used commonly for the treatment of hypertension, but they can, as a side effect, can lead to constipation. So such drugs, they include calcium channel blockers, aluminium containing antacids, aluminium hydroxide, and so on. Anticholinergic agents like atropine, hyoscine, then certain antipsychotics like chlorpromazine, etc. Iron. Okay, iron in some individuals can lead to diarrhea, but in many individuals it can also lead to constipation. Opioids, morphine, pethidine, methadone, noscapine, Okay, all these opioids, they have a tendency to cause constipation by affecting the neurons located in the GI tract and decreasing motility. So drugs can also cause constipation. So whenever you are assessing an individual who is suffering from constipation, look for what concomitant drugs or what drugs an individual is taking for any other uh, pathological condition which he is or she is suffering from, and you can assess whether that individual drug may be the causative factor for constipation. So now, what are the drugs that are used in the treatment of constipation? Drugs that are used in the treatment of constipation, they are known as laxatives or purgatives. Now, it is better to know this terminology, that what is laxative and what is a purgative. So, laxative, uh, the term itself indicates that it is got mild action. It produces soft but formed stools. That is, the stools are of solid or semi-solid consistency. So that has to be a condition when you can label a drug as a laxative. While purgative is indicates a strong action and it indicates liquid evacuation of the bowel. That is, whatever contents of the bowel are there, the liquid, they are evacuated by these drugs. A drug in lower dose can act as a laxative, while in higher dose it can act as a purgative. Okay, so sometimes a single drug, depending on its dose, can act as laxative or purgative, both. So now we'll see the classification of drugs that are used in treatment of constipation. We have bulk forming agents like bran, agar, isabgol, methyl cellulose, etc. Then we have stool softeners like docuzates and liquid paraffin. Then you have stimulant purgatives like bisacodyl, senna, castor oil, phenolphthalein. Osmotic purgatives, you have magnesium sulfate, sodium sulfate, lactulose, lactitol, magnesium hydroxide, and some other drugs, that is prucalopride and lubiprostone. Okay. Now these two drugs, they have a specific indication. They are used for a specific condition. While all the previous ones, they are used for the treatment of functional, that is idiopathic constipation, as well as constipation due to other causes. And you will find various conditions where different choice or different group of drugs are used as particular drugs of choice. So that we'll see in the next few slides. So now we will discuss the individual drugs. So first is bulk forming laxative. Any dietary fiber, any condition, any dietary constituent which cannot be digested in our gastrointestinal tract and it remains undigested, it is a fiber. Okay, the constituents of fiber include lignin, pectin, cellulose. All these are constituents of dietary fiber. The natural sources of dietary fiber are includes bran, isabgol, agar, and psyllium. Now this isabgol is a very uh, cheap, very easy to use, and very useful compound or drug, you can say, for the prevention and treatment of constipation. Synthetic compounds are there, includes calcium polycarbophil. Okay, now what do they do? How do the bulk forming agents act? See, always remember that uh, any type of drug which is used for the treatment of constipation, what it does is it increases the water and electrolyte content of the stool. So what happens is that this increased water content will increase the stool mass, and this increased stool mass then stretches the bowel wall, elicits the reflexes which can lead to defecation and passage of stool. Okay, now this dietary fiber, what it happens is, with dietary fiber, is that they are undigestible compounds. So these undigestible compounds, they reach the large intestine, where by fermentation of the colonic bacteria present over there, they produce compounds which are osmotically active, and what they do is they retain water in the large intestine, and thus they increase stool bulk. And finally, because they increase the stool bulk, They stretch the colonic wall and can lead to passage of soft form stools. Okay. It also shortens the gastrointestinal transit time, that is the time taken from for the substance to reach from stomach to the large intestine, that is also reduced. The only problem with bulk forming agents is that it has got a slow onset of action. Okay, it takes about 3 to 4 days for these drugs to act. So an individual who is already suffering from constipation and he is having a lot of symptoms, then these drugs, they do take time to act. Okay, the adverse effects with these drugs include flatulence, bloating, feeling of heaviness in the abdomen. Okay, and sometimes even cramps can be felt while passage of stools. Okay. Now these flatulence and bloating are because of the fermentation of the indigestible fibers by the colonic bacteria, giving rise to a lot of gas. Contraindication: only intestinal obstruction and intestinal ulcers are the contraindication of dietary fibers. Otherwise, dietary fiber can be can be used in any set of patients. So where are they used? So mainly they are used for treatment and prevention of functional constipation. Okay. So what usually happens is that at night time, usually before bedtime, about 15 to 30 grams of dietary fiber, may it be bran or may it be isabgol, soaked in water or in milk, is taken or consumed by the individual. After 2 to 3 days or 3 to 4 days, usually patient starts getting a good bowel movements. Next group of drugs are stool softeners, also known as emollients. Okay, so they include docusates, DOSS, that is dioctyl sodium sulfosuccinate. Now all these are detergents. Okay, they are having detergent-like action. So when they come in contact with the hard stool, which is present in the bowel, what they do is they decrease the surface tension and they increase the permeability of water in these hard stool. So what happens is that now these hard stools become soft and easy to pass. So by the detergent action, they are able to accumulate water in the stool and thus make it soft, and the individual can pass this stool easily. That's why they are known as stool softeners. Okay, they are mainly used when straining at stool has to be avoided. See, there are certain conditions like, say for example, myocardial infarction, say for example, ocular surgeries. Okay, in such conditions, straining can lead to or can adversely affect the condition of the patient. Or in case of ocular surgery, it could rip out the stitches which have been taken. So in such conditions, it is advised that the patient not strain the at the stool. The patient does not unnecessary cause undue exertion while passing stool. So to avoid that, stool softeners can be used. Adverse effects: mainly abdominal cramps and abdominal pain while passing the stool. Next stool softener is liquid paraffin. We all have heard about liquid paraffin. It is a highly lubricating agent. It coats the hard stool mass that is present in the constipated individual and allows it to pass easily. It is a petroleum product, slow to act. The only problem with liquid paraffin is that it has got a very bad taste, so it is very difficult to consume. Plus, because of its very sticky gel-like nature, uh, a patient may aspirate it inadvertently while consuming. Okay, so some of it may get into the respiratory tract, giving rise to aspiration pneumonia or lipid pneumonia. Liquid paraffin being a fat soluble substance, so what happens is that it can retain the fat soluble vitamins, vitamin A, D, E, and K, causing deficiency of vitamins of these vitamins when taken chronically. Okay, so these are the problems with the use of liquid paraffin. The next group of drugs are the stimulant purgatives, okay, known as bisacodyl, senna, cascara. Okay, all these are stimulant purgatives. Okay, now how do they act? So they act by two ways. One is they stimulate the bowel motility, that they increase the motility of the intrinsic neurons, and thus peristalsis occurs. And they also do is they activate the intestinal cells to secrete water and electrolytes. Okay, now these water and electrolytes get accumulated in the lumen, and uh, chances are there that these drugs will produce liquid evacuation. Okay, so they usually act as purgatives. Okay, uh, large doses, it can lead to electrolyte imbalance, because a lot of water and electrolyte will be lost in the feces, giving rise to dehydration and electrolyte imbalance. So they should be used cautiously. The only thing is that their onset of action is fast. They act usually within 6 to 8 hours. So when a dose is given at bedtime, usually in the morning you will get a complete evacuation of the bowel. Contraindicated in pregnancy and intestinal obstruction. It worsens the intestinal obstruction. Where is it used? So we will see at the end where are the stimulant purgatives used. The most common, the most common purgative that is used in clinical practice is this bisacodyl. It is available as brand name Delco Lex. So the next group is osmotic purgatives. As the name suggests, they have osmotic activity. By their osmotic activity, they retain water in the large intestine, in the lumen, and by retaining water, they stretch the bowel wall, stimulate motion, and usually liquid evacuation is obtained. Okay, so they distend the bowel, they increase peristalsis, and they produce liquid evacuation. Its advantage is that it usually acts within 1 to 3 hours when given by rectal route as an enema. So when you give rectally as an enema, usually it takes about 1 to 3 hours to act. For oral solution, usually 3 to 4 hours or 4 to 6 hours, the action starts, and complete evacuation of bowel can be achieved with this group of drugs. The only problem with this is that it can lead to dehydration and electrolyte imbalance. So it should be used very carefully. The compounds include magnesium sulfate, magnesium hydroxide, and sodium sulfate. In osmotic purgatives, there are very two distinct drugs which require special mention. Also, they can be asked as a pharmacological basis question, and they are very important. So we'll see them one by one. So first is lactulose. It is a semi-synthetic disaccharide. So it is a combination of two monosaccharide sugars, fructose and lactose, and the combination is neither digested nor absorbed in the small intestine. So it reaches the large intestine unabsorbed form. In the large intestine, the bacteria present over there as commensals break down this compound into osmotically active products which are acidic in nature. Now these osmotically active products, they retain water and produce formed and soft stool, and usually lactulose starts acting about 6 to 8 hours. Clinical uses. So lactulose is mainly used for the treatment and prevention of constipation, but there is one more important use of lactulose, and that is in the prevention and treatment of hepatic encephalopathy patients. So what happens is that in hepatic encephalopathy patients, a lot of ammonia is being produced, okay, in the body, and this ammonia crosses the blood-brain barrier and damages the CNS neurons, causing CNS symptoms, giving rise to encephalopathy. Now, the aim of lactulose in hepatic encephalopathy is that the lactulose breakdown products in the large intestine, they are acidic in nature. So whenever the environment is acidic, whatever ammonia is produced by colonic bacteria gets converted or gets oxidized into ammonium. Ammonia gets converted into ammonium ions, and these ammonium ions cannot be cross the blood-brain barrier and usually excreted by the kidney. So the lactulose prevents the passage of ammonia from the bloodstream to the CNS and thus prevents or reduces the CNS system. So this could be asked as a pharmacological basis question. Describe the pharmacological basis of lactulose in hepatic encephalopathy. So you should know the answer. Adverse effects include cramps, flatulence and nausea. Lactitol, again it is a sugar alcohol of the lactulose and properties are similar, mechanism, pharmacokinetics and adverse effects and everything is similar to lactulose. Okay, it is useful mainly in the treatment and prevention of hepatic encephalopathy and constipation. Next is two drugs. At the beginning of the topic, I showed you in the classification that there are three drugs, that is prucalopride, lubiprostone and tegaserod. They have a specific use. All these three drugs, they are mainly used for the treatment of constipation in irritable bowel syndrome, where the individual is suffering from severe constipation. So in constipation predominant irritable bowel syndrome, one of the three drugs can be tried to relieve the symptoms of constipation. Prucalopride is a 5-HT4 agonist. It increases the peristaltic activity. Lubiprostone is a chloride channel opener. So what it does is it increases the excretion of chloride into the lumen and thus leads to accumulation of sodium chloride and water in the colon and softens the stool. Tegaserod, okay, it was a 5-HT4 agonist, but it has been withdrawn because of its toxicity on cardiac tissue. Okay, it has got cardiac tissue, so it has not been it has been withdrawn from the market. But the previous one, that is the prucalopride and lubiprostone, they are available and they are mainly used for constipation predominant irritable bowel syndrome. So next is clinical uses and a choice of laxative for a condition. Okay, so first and foremost is functional constipation, that is that for which no immediate cause can be found out, but usually it is related to the lifestyle habits of an individual. Okay, functional constipation usually is of two types, spastic and atonic. Spastic usually is treated giving bulk forming agents. It takes about 3 to 4 days to act, but these are the drug of choice for spastic type of constipation. Atonic constipation is very difficult to treat because the problem is with the intestinal smooth muscles. Okay, they contract, giving rise to peristalsis and giving rise to defecation reflex. So here the problem lies with the machinery that is associated with the motion. Okay, so sometimes a stimulant purgative like senna or castrol or anthraquinone can be tried for a short period of time, followed by bulk forming agents, hoping that the individual will recover. In addition to these drugs, usually modification of lifestyle and diet gives rise to treatment of, or it gives very symptomatic relief or complete relief in individuals who are suffering from constipation. So consuming healthy fiber rich diet, a lot of green leafy vegetables have to be included in the diet. Then proper diet, that is timing should be proper. Proper water intake, that is hydration, should be maintained. Exercise, okay, immobility can promote constipation, so regular exercise, regular moving about, rest and sleep, they are the key to better health and prevention as well as treatment of constipation. Bedridden patients, like those who have undergone surgery, who are suffering from fractures, stroke, myocardial infarction, they are unable to get up. Okay, so to prevent constipation in such individuals, we can start immediately once the patient is bedridden bulk forming agents like isabgol or bran. You can daily give those agents to the individual and prophylactically, so that constipation does not occur. While to treat constipation in such patients, you can use a stimulant purgative or you can use a stool softener for a short period of time, Along with that, you give bulk forming agents which will um, totally recover the patient. Now this we have already talked about the to avoid straining at stools. Some conditions like ocular surgery, piles or hernia repair, or cardiovascular disease, or perianal surgeries. In those individuals, it is advised that straining at stool to be avoided. So usually a stool softener or a bulk forming agent is used. Yes. Preparation of bowel for surgery. Okay, whenever we want to do surgery on bowel or on abdomen, or we want to do a colonoscopy, or we want to do some radiographic procedures like CT scan abdomen with contrast. So contrast CT of abdomen is to be done, or a barium meal is to be done. Then in those individuals, it is usually required that the contents of the bowel are completely evacuated. So for that purpose, we use an osmotic purgative either orally or as an enema. Okay, or a large dose of stimulant purgative can be given overnight, and in the morning complete evacuation of bowel contents including gas can be done. Okay, also after certain antihelminthics to remove the dead worm which is present in the GI tract, saline purgative or senna may be used, but usually with newer antihelminthics, albendazole and mebendazole, these does not need to be done. So these are the clinical conditions where we use different uh, drugs, laxatives or purgatives. And finally, the last part, it is related to purgative abuse and what are the problems with the use of purgative. So when an individual has purgative habit, okay, so what happens is that once the individual takes a purgative, achieves complete evacuation of the bowel, then usually the bowel takes time to fill up, and it usually takes a day or two for normal bowel habits to develop. So now what happens is that an individual who has taken purgative, achieved complete evacuation of bowel, now for the next 2 3 days does not have a motion, so he feels or thinks that he is constipated, and again starts taking purgative on a regular basis. That particular thing is known as purgative abuse. It is very difficult to break that chain of purgative abuse. So what we can do is that we can advise the patient to wait for 3 to 4 days following a single dose of purgative for the normal bowel movement to take place. And in addition to that, we can add bulk forming agents along with the purgative so that normal bowel habits can return. Okay. The problems with the use of purgative include fluid and electrolyte imbalance, steatorrhea, malabsorption syndrome, protein losing enteropathy, vitamin deficiency. So relax, stay safe in this COVID pandemic. Stay at your hostel or at home and read. Thank you very much.